All right, and we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new off the cuff interview. Today's guest is GK Ultra. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Good, good. Well, I'm happy that you're here. I'm glad we made this work. I know our schedules they don't always line up, so we had to do the weekend, which is totally okay with me.
Yeah.
Um, but before we really kind of dive in here, everyone could go check out his channel in the link below. He makes comic book videos and whatnot. And is there anything you want to kind of say about your channel? Maybe an elevator pitch, if you will, about your channel?
Yeah, pretty much just me talking about whatever has piqued my interest lately. Mostly
Cool.
comics. I've made one or two videos on actual novels. I read a lot
Okay.
of fiction, fantasy mostly. Also some Stephen King, some horror stuff. The last
Nice.
two videos I think I made were kind of just a TBR, kind of on the novel side of things for 25. And then I did like a February kind of a month in review for what I've been reading comics and novel wise.
Nice. Nice. What have you been reading recently?
Recently, so comic wise, it has been so before Daredevil started on Disney Plus, I decided I was going to read through all the way from Bendis to the Zdarsky run again, which is all lined up there on the shelf there. So I've got the Frank Miller, Bendis, Brubaker, Mark
Yeah,
Waid,
wow.
and then the Zdarsky stuff, which I had already read most of before. The Zdarsky run I actually hadn't read, but it was one of those runs that was shared so heavily on like the comic book subreddits and stuff that I felt
Mhm.
like I pretty much had because no one
Sure.
could keep their mouth shut about it, you know. Besides that, the Killer Be Killed Compendium. I just
Oh,
finished
nice.
that up last weekend. I loved it. I had
Yeah.
read the first trade of that a long time ago,
Hmm.
like back when the series first started, and it's funny because it's one of those books that I had the trade of, and I
Right.
pitched the general setup for the book with the demon and everything to so many people, and for some reason I never went back to it. But like I know for a fact I've gotten like a bunch of my friends to read it, but I had never actually read the whole thing all the way through until about I finished it, like I said, about a week ago. And
Nice.
also this pull it out here, the
Here, let me
Stormwatch.
I'll highlight you.
Yeah, that's
Stormwatch. Okay.
Stormwatch. So this is all the Warren Ellis stuff that leads into his Authority run.
Okay.
So I've never read anything in the universe besides the Authority originally,
Okay.
and that was just that one trade. That's the Warren Ellis stuff. So it's like 12 or 13 issues.
Right.
So this year or last year, actually, I read his Planetary as well. So I've read Authority, Planetary, and now I've read this, which is all the Warren Ellis Wildstorm stuff. I gotta
Nice.
say, I was really impressed with that. That was awesome. A bunch of characters that obviously aren't in the Authority because a lot of them, spoiler alert, don't make it out of
Sure.
that book. But it was super cool, super fun stuff. I know Warren Ellis is one of those problematic creators, but honestly,
Love it.
I really vibe with a lot of his stuff that I've read. I don't know if that's taboo to say still or not. It seems like people have warmed on him again recently.
A little bit, I would
Um,
say. Yeah, I
but
don't know. I'm a little ignorant, I guess, to the accusations and whatnot about or surrounding him. Um,
I don't think it's as bad as the extent of the Neil Gaiman stuff that came out, but
right,
just in
right.
that, without touching on it too much, it's similar vein to,
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was talking to someone too recently. I'm drawing a blank on who it was. I don't know if it was on the show. It might. I think it was Beyond Comics, but don't quote me on that. And I don't think it was on the show. We've been playing some Fortnite off camera, obviously. And yeah, I think it was him. He mentioned Warren Ellis a lot, and he likes a lot of what he's written. I haven't read too much by him. I have read the Authority run that he did, the 12 issues or whatever it is,
yeah.
and I've read Desolation Jones as well, which was pretty good. I think
Yeah,
that's
so I've not
it.
checked that out, but I did see the solicit for it on the Brave and the Boys, the OPB buyer's guide. They were talking about it a little bit, and one of them said that they had read it and it was really good. And I think Jake said he hadn't checked it out, but he was going to. And it kind of popped on and piqued my interest, but I kind of forgot about it, to be honest.
That was Desolation Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really good. It's I have it back here, up here. It's like the same size as like a Remender image oversized. If you have one of
Yeah, the
those,
big ones. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, it was good. It was good. I would definitely recommend it. J.H. Williams the third does the artwork, and the artwork's great. I do want to do a video on it eventually. I'm going to reread it because it wasn't too dense necessarily, but at times it was like a little bit too much to take in. So I think it's one of those books that does kind of benefit from a second read through or even a third. So I'm going to do a video on that eventually. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It was a good read overall for
Cool.
sure. Awesome. So you're reading some good stuff. What else have you read by Warren Ellis though? Like Planetary, do you have that?
So I do. I've got the Planetary on me. It's over here.
Oh, nice. Yep.
As far as I know he's done some indie stuff. He did I think it was Warren Ellis that did around the time that the Black Bolt miniseries came out by Christian Ward and Saladin Ahmed.
Okay.
I think there was a Karnak book that was like maybe 7 issues long, and I don't know anything about the Inhumans. I just want to preface by saying that so I don't sound ignorant here. I've read Black Bolt by Ahmed, which is amazing. If you've not checked it out, definitely give it a shot.
Okay.
You don't have to know. You don't. It's one of those series that you don't really have to know anything.
Right.
It's just a good story about Black Bolt just as a character.
Right.
Probably the best thing I've read written by Ahmed, to be honest, because I'm not hot on a lot of his other stuff. I've read a little bit of, well, I don't remember how long Warren Ellis did Moon Knight for, but I think I read it, but it's been so long that I couldn't tell you how I felt about it. I'm sure I liked it.
Okay.
But I've got a memory like a goldfish. I've got a shelf full of books, and if it's not like one of the last 2 I've read, I couldn't tell you what specifically happened, when, and where.
That's dude. Listen, I'm the same way. I've said it before on I think the All in One Nerd Show that, yeah, as far as like certain story beats goes, like it's after a week of reading it, it's like, oh, I don't remember. I remember bits and pieces, and it's funny because we did Invincible. We reviewed Invincible, and we kind of touched on that. And I've read it, but I remember certain beats about it, bigger events, but I don't necessarily remember how like they played out.
Oh, I'm the same way. I've got all 3 compendiums of Invincible and read them all. Like, I feel like I read each compendium in like 2 sittings. So I would sit down and read like 25 issues.
Oh, wow.
And then come back the next day and read another 25. But because of that, like when the show started, like I was telling, like my dad and my brother are both into comics and, comic media too. So they were asking me about like what happens here and who's this character. And granted, there has been some changes made for the show. I know that, but like even still, I'm looking back and I'm like, man, this pacing just feels so weird. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's because you read like 3 seasons worth in like a week. That's probably why you think the pacing's weird for this episode.
For sure. Yeah. So, and it does kind of make rereading things nice because it's like, refreshing in some ways where like I'll remember like whether or not I enjoyed something. So, but like I said, I don't really remember like story beats or specific storylines.
Yeah.
And so like when I reread it, it's kind of a nice surprise again, the whole story and whatnot. So anything else you're reading that you want to mention?
Right now, so I'm not reading any comics right now. I plan on digging into the Hellblazer series. So I've got both of the Hellblazer omnis that are out for Constantine. So I've got Jamie Delano Volume 1 and Garth Ennis. But I almost want to wait until more get released so I can sit down. Here's something about me also, I should say in advance. I will read stuff digitally, but it really, really bothers me. Like I don't get, if I read the series digitally and then I later on buy it physically, I find that I enjoy it 10 times more if I read physically. So
interesting.
I try not to. I mean, I use the apps every now and then and stuff, and I did have a membership to the DC, whatever it's called, for a few months, and I used it to catch up on a lot of stuff or check some series out. But I just can't. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't have a huge like iPad either. I feel like if I did have like a big tablet, I would like it more. But I just use my phone, and then I find myself reading like this, and I'm trying to,
Yeah, that might make the digital experience not so fun. I have an iPad, and I have read digitally, and I don't hate it. I don't mind it really. I find with some DC Marvel stuff, I would actually prefer to read digitally just because that's the stuff I wouldn't necessarily reread, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like I can save a lot of money either with a subscription to like Comixology or the DC or Marvel app, whatever, and I can just read the whole thing. So
Mhm.
um so yeah, if you did want to venture out into more digital reading, I would definitely recommend like an iPad or even like
Yeah,
a
for
Kindle
sure.
Fire, I think something like that.
That's
If they
something I
even
think about
make
with collecting too. I'm like, I have so there's room. I've got a house that has plenty of room for more shelves and stuff. This is
right.
actually just shelves that were made into the wall whenever we bought this house. So I'm using it. Of
Yeah,
course, my wife just has some stuff up here. And if I pan the camera up a little bit, you can see she has a whole like
she has
color
all her books.
coordinated
Yeah,
somewhat stuff up there right now. But like I'm kind of still debating what I want to get physically. And like you said, what I would be okay with just reading through digitally once and probably not picking up again.
you're right.
But there's so many things that keep getting announced, and I'm like, man, I've heard a lot of people talking about that. It's been years. People have been waiting for this to be in like a hardcover or an oversized, you know.
Right.
And there's part of me that also think that like I should probably like choose to support the independent books more in the
Yeah,
physical releases because that more directly helps the creators and stuff. Like,
for sure.
you know, these Savage Shores, these Manifest Destiny, Image OHCs. I love Manifest Destiny. So glad that got a deluxe kind of whatever Image calls these deluxe library edition, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, shouldn't I just support them more in, you know, in advanced format to show Image and Dark Horse and Boom and everyone else that we want stuff like this, you know?
Right. For sure. Yeah. That's like I said, I think with the indie stuff particularly, that's the stuff I would find myself rereading. Like right now I'm rereading
Yeah.
Criminal. I don't know. Have you checked that one out?
So I have not. As far as the Ed Brubaker indie stuff, I've read Kill or Be Killed. I've read
Yep.
Reckless, and there's a couple other of the shorter series, but I can't tell you off the top of my head what they
Okay.
were. I know him and Sean Phillips have done like so many projects together. I can't keep them all straight.
Oh
I
yeah.
read the first volume of Reckless. I know for sure.
Nice.
Criminal, I may have actually read the first little trade of, but I
Mhm.
couldn't tell you that for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend Criminal. They have some
Yeah,
nice hard
a lot about it.
yeah, they have some nice hardcovers out. I have them two of them right down here. The other is over there where I'm reading. I would definitely recommend Criminal. They're making a TV show too, so it might be a timely to check it out eventually. Um, yeah, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. That's like one of my favorite comic duos ever. Like if their
Mhm.
names on something, it's I'm definitely checking it out. But I
Yeah,
guess
I
going back,
recently
go ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say I just Brubaker is a name that I see a lot, but I've not
Yeah.
read nearly enough of his stuff. Like I recently did just buy the first epic of his Captain America run that introduces Winter
Okay.
Soldier,
Yep.
and I tore through that so fast. Like I had heard it hyped up so much, but I
Yeah.
never actually checked it out until about 2 or 3 months ago. And I'm like, man, I've got to get all these epics now. Like I'm already like on the hook. And he wrote
Yeah.
like his own. He has like 5 volumes worth of Captain America,
He
and I'm
does.
like,
Yeah.
gosh,
I have two
am
of
I
them
going to
over
read
there.
all this? I'm like, I'm probably going to read all that one way or the other.
Yeah, well, if you ever, I don't have the first Captain America Omni by him, but I have the second and third. So if you're ever in the market for them, hit me up. They're both sealed still. And
Nice.
we can make a deal. I think they might. I don't know if they're in print still.
There's
But
two or
one of
three I think that are still in print, but I don't know
yeah,
which one because they're not labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
no,
There's the Death of Captain America, you know, Return of Steve Rogers, something like that.
yeah,
They're
Return of
not sequentially.
yeah, yeah. And I had the first one. I sold it to a Fifth of Jack Gaming actually, because I did start to read it, but I don't know. It wasn't hitting for me, unfortunately. So I'm like, okay, I think
I like
I
that particular. I like Brubaker's particular style, even when it comes to the big two
sure.
characters. Like it's definitely just it's Captain America, but it's a spy drama. Like that's what it is. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
the same as his indie
yeah,
stuff. It all kind of feels the same. And
for
Winter
sure.
Soldier is my favorite MCU movie. So I was
Okay.
already like I already knew pretty much no matter what that I was gonna enjoy it.
Right, right. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend like Gotham Central by Brubaker as
Yeah,
well.
heard a lot
Eh,
about that and haven't checked it out yet.
incredible. That's one of my favorite omnis. The Sleeper Omnibus as well. That's by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. That's amazing. Definitely recommend those two. Great reads, just fantastic stuff. Let's jump over to the comment section real quick though. Loverman84, thank you for being here. Nice name. Same here. When my friends ask about what happens in season 3, I can't help them out because it's been a while since I read Invincible. Yeah, that's exactly how I am too. I'm like, I don't know. So are you reading any like prose novels right now? I know you mentioned you read some fantasy stuff.
Fantasy. So I'm currently not starting any fantasy books because there's one coming out in the first couple weeks of May. I know I'm going to like stop what I'm doing to read on release. It's going to be the Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I don't know if you heard that name.
No.
He's written probably a dozen books. He's kind of a dark fantasy, more adult, like Game of Thrones. I hate to use that as the only comparison, but that's what most people know. But he writes really good stuff, and this is the start of a brand new series. It's not like the same world as all of his other books. It's completely new. I think it's the start of a new trilogy, and I'm excited. I've never been around and caught up to his stuff for like a new release, so I'm just really excited for that. But I'm actually reading. So the other book I read in February was, the Western Lonesome Dove.
What is it?
The Western Lonesome Dove. A lot of people know it from like the TV miniseries they did.
I don't think so. I don't think
so. A friend loaned me it's a 4-book series, and I've never read like a Western in my life. But this is the first book. It's called Dead Man's Walk.
Okay.
It's about these 2 super young, like 20-year-old Texas Rangers. Lonesome Dove is actually the 3rd book in the series. It was written first, but then the author went back and wrote these first 2 as prequels, and there's one sequel to Lonesome Dove. So my friend told me, because I asked him, I said, should I start with Lonesome Dove because publication order, and he said that's what he did. So he wanted to know what I thought, doing it the opposite, going chronologically in the timeline of the books. So I read Dead Man's Walk. This is a wonderful book. It is like super brutal. Like it's very like the unforgiving frontier of the West. Like Comanche, they're fighting Comanches. They're on this horrible, like it's a horrible idea. This Texas Rangers, like the captain of the Rangers is like, we're gonna go annex New Mexico. We can do that, right? And he just decides he's gonna do it. And obviously, like barely anyone made that alive. But like in the midst of all that, there's so much humor. Like Larry McMurtry, the author, is so good at writing dialogue that like he makes you really just bust out laughing in the middle of like these horrible situations. And nothing's like played up for comedy that's like, really sad, but he's just so good at like interweaving like character motivation and humor in the story. So you're not reading it going, oh my God, like I can't do this much longer. Like you stay pretty upbeat while you're reading it, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm on book 2 of that series right now. It's called Comanche Moon. So I'm probably going to go through those first. And also in my downtime at work, I read on the Kindle app. I pull it up on the web browser on my computer at work. And I've been reading through a short story collection by Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son. Lock and Key. So I love Lock and Key.
Me too.
And I've read Nosferatu. He wrote a book called Nosferatu, but it's NOS4, the letter A and 2. It's a license plate is what it is. And it is like kind of a vampire story, not really. It's not supposed to be a remake of Nosferatu or anything. That's just the name of the book.
Interesting.
So this is a horror short story collection called Full Throttle. I don't know if it's his first collection, but there's a couple in there that was written, co-written with his dad, with Stephen King, and they're all really good so far. I think I'm on the 7th or 8th one, but I've been digging through those over the last couple of months.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting because I've actually thought about reading some short story collections, and I know Stephen King has a bunch out there, and I know Joe Hill from Lock and Key. I also read some of or just one of, I think it was Basket Full of Heads, which is a cool horror comic.
So I've not only comic of his that I've checked out is the is Lock and Key.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I know he
Lachlan
did
Key's
a bunch of
great.
stuff for. I think he did. He have. I wouldn't say an imprint, but didn't he have a bunch of stuff at like DC Black Label with the Basket Full of Heads stuff and like
Yeah,
4 or 5 other?
yeah. There's a box
Yeah,
set
I
out
need to
there.
check those out.
I would definitely. I like I said, I only read Basket Full of Heads, but I really enjoyed it. And there's a box set out there, and I may pick up the box set actually because I read Lock and Key and Basket Full of Heads digitally actually.
Yeah,
So I don't own them physically or anything like that. But
yeah, I don't either. Lock and Key was on Kindle, the Kindle Unlimited.
yep, that's where I read it
Yeah,
too.
that's how I read that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I read that. It was around Halloween. It was September, October-ish, and, that was a great series. That really was. I'd recommend that to anyone who has yet to check that one out. But going back to, like, short story collections and whatnot, this Halloween season, I do think I'm gonna pick up a few, either Stephen King or maybe even that Joe Hill one you were talking about,
Yeah.
short story collections of these, like, horror, short stories. 'Cause,
Honestly, it's so I after reading a bunch of novels and not really reading like short stories, I kind of looked and I had no basis for this, but I kind of looked at him as like, why would I rather read this than read like, a full length novel,
right.
by anyone, not just, not just the horror authors. Why would I do that instead of, yeah. And this book has completely changed my mind. Now I'm like, I actually posted in a couple of the discords I'm in. I'm like, does anyone have like short story recommendations, like collections? And I got like
Yeah.
a list on my notes app now of like 15 that people said were
Oh,
good.
that's funny.
Like all different genres, just little so I'm like, man, these little 30, 50 page stories are actually like really good. And I'm a big horror fan just in general. So stuff
Yeah.
like that like you can get through it quicker, but there's still so much tension and there are still like scares in there. Not that
Interesting.
I'm,
Okay.
not that I'm reading it and getting like chill bumps or anything, but like there is like you can read the story and be like, that was a good one. Like
That was
that
a
got
good
me. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was watching, I think it was some YouTube video or I can't remember what it was, but they mentioned short story collections. And I was kind of, I'm like you, I've never really read a collection of short
Yeah.
stories and I've never found them appealing. And I've yet to check one out, but I do plan on it because it does seem like it has its benefits compared to like a regular novel where you can just sit down and read one of the short stories and get a full story.
Yep.
So I do want to definitely check a couple out around the Halloween season, but I will definitely hit you up too before that probably to get maybe some recommendations that aren't necessarily like horror short stories
Yeah,
or
for sure.
whatever. Because it does seem appealing to me where it's like, oh yeah, you can get like a complete story relatively quickly compared to like a novel or something where
Yeah.
you're,
There's
you
been
know,
Joe Hill I found is really like, have you read much Stephen King?
I have, well, not too much, but I do like Stephen King.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not read like a crazy amount, but I've read I recently read last fall,
Mhm.
like you said, around the Halloween season last year. I read Salem's Lot for the
Yeah.
first time ever.
That's the
Love
one I
Salem's
read
Lot.
too.
That's probably one of my top 5 novels for me I've ever read, honestly.
Yeah. It's
Same
good.
way with, I want to say The Stand is probably my favorite novel
Mm,
if I had to pick one because it is, a standalone. It's huge, like it's a
yeah.
huge book, but it's just,
I have an edition down here and it's thick.
yeah, it took me a long time to get through, but it was really good. And I will say in The Stand, there were moments where I was like, because I had it, well, on Kindle, I had it on Kindle and on my phone, and it would be like, I would try to not, scroll or watch stuff as I was falling asleep, and I would start reading these stories. And I got to The Stand, and there were genuinely moments where I was reading The Stand that I was like sitting up in bed, like looking around, like I was I was a little frightened.
No kidding. That's
Yeah.
funny. My mom's favorite book is The Stand, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so she owns, like a trade back of it or
Yeah.
soft cover, whatever.
Yeah. I bought a Barnes and Noble Bad edition. It's like a yellow orangish
Okay.
fancy hardback edition that I bought physically just to have and put on the shelf. It's I think it's still sealed actually. I just wanted because I was like, this is beautiful. You know, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that I'm like, I want to open it up and read it again, but I'm like, man, it looks so nice just sitting there.
Yeah, I do want to read The Stand for sure, and I have tried to because, like I said, I do own an edition down here, and I've tried to get into it, but it's just such a huge book, and it's a hardcover. It's
It
a nice
is.
hardcover, but
It
it's
is.
just so big. So I think if I were to read The Stand, which honestly I've been reading a lot of philosophy books lately and a little like
Yeah.
more dense kind of novels, I guess, where they're not necessarily like light reads. And not to say The Stand's a light read or anything, but it's, it's fiction, so it is kind of
Right. Yeah.
escapism, if you will. Whereas the books I have been reading aren't necessarily that. I have enjoyed them a lot, but so The Stand might be one I read digitally, just because it's it's just so big, and it does seem like one I can really kind of sink my teeth into and whatnot. So, did you read that one digitally?
The Stand.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I read it digitally. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one. I'm gonna look and see if it's on the Kindle app, which I think I have.
It is definitely one of those that you have to stick with. Not that it starts off slow, just because it is so long that it's almost daunting. And I will say this too, I listen to audiobooks every now and then as well. And
Sure.
I, of course, one of those that I listened to years and years ago was Stephen King's autobiography On Writing. And he actually narrates it too. And I was reading The Stand while I was listening to it actually, and I hadn't made it that far, but I was already like, okay, this is really good. And there's a certain part that, no warning whatsoever, he spoils like a huge thing that happens like 60% of the way through the book, and I hadn't made it there yet.
Oh my god!
And he says, like, not only does he do that, but he flat out says, I was having trouble writing it. I almost threw the manuscript away, and then I put a bomb here, like in the story, like he writes in a bomb. And I was driving down the road, like, there's no way he just said that. And like,
oh my gosh!
So I started reading even faster every chance I could to get to that part, and I was like, "There's no way, no way." And,
oh my gosh! So
it did.
Well,
it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the book, but I was like, that like motivated me to like put like as fast as I can finish the book.
Sure. Oh my gosh! On Writing, that's a book I own, and I've only because he does like a memoir part, which is like the first half or first quarter of the book, whatever. That's just about his life, and then he kind of goes into the more writing technical stuff. And I think I stopped there because at the time I wasn't really a writer or into writing or anything like that.
Yeah, I was an English major, so I was actually, I think I was in college while I was reading that. I've always just loved to read any format, whether it was comics or nonfiction or fiction novels. So I was an English major in college for a while, and I was really into it at the time. And actually, the author I was just talking about, Larry McMurtry, that wrote Lonesome Dove, the Western author, Stephen King talks about him in that book too, about the way he writes dialogue, how it doesn't have to be. He's the author, or one of the authors that he uses, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been years since I read this, but I remember hearing that, and it kind of stuck with me that dialogue doesn't have to be he screamed, he exclaimed, those words. It can just be he said, and you can still garner all the information you need about that character's personality or that character's mood without having those words. And that stuck with me a lot too, because at the time I was, obviously trying to write a little bit myself.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, On Writing, that's one. Like I said, I read half of it, and I've been thinking about going back to it recently to revisit it because I want to get into writing more again. But so I appreciate you saying there was a big Stand spoiler, because I think I'll read the Stand first to make sure I get everything out of that.
Well, to be fair, you may be like, and I know I talked about my memory, like if you read On Writing first, you're liable to not, like, he lists a character's name is what he does in that same sentence, but you may that may just not stick with you. But since I was reading both at the same time, obviously, as soon as I heard a character's name, I was like,
Sure.
It took me by surprise.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I think that might be my next read because I'm looking for a fiction book to read next because I just want to take a break from these philosophical, like heavier
I
books
get
right
that.
now.
But like
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like when you look at a book like The Stand versus, comics or books that are way shorter, like I will say these books here, even like this first book is like it's like 450 pages. Book two is
Right.
like 780. And I think
Right.
Lonesome Dove's around the same length. So I do look at my shelf sometimes. I'm looking at fiction
Sad.
books to read, and I'm like, would I rather read three of these or this one book?
Right.
It's going to take me the same amount of time either way.
Yeah, for sure.
Just know that The Stand's one of those that you do have to. It's going to be a chunk of your time just because it's so long, not because it's boring or bad or slow, just because it
It's
is
just
such a
so
long
long.
book. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that might be my next read. I was considering I have the entire Game of Thrones series, like the
good
box
stuff.
set or whatever. Yeah. And I read the first one and I haven't read any more. So I was considering rereading the first one and then the entire series and like
I'm guessing you've
reading
seen the show.
what's that?
I'm guessing you've watched the show.
Not the entire thing, actually. Only
Okay,
up until
all right.
season 5, I think. Around
Well, that's a
there.
good place to stop.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I hear.
But yeah, the books actually take a drastically different tone. If you're
Okay.
depending on how much like high fantasy you like in your books, I
Sure.
will say the earlier Game of Thrones books are more about the political intrigue and all that families. That stays throughout, but there is more that the showrunners left out of the show because they were like, well, we're not going to be the most watched show on television if we put all this fantasy stuff in, which I don't know why they got that idea because they weave it in really well in the books. But I will say the last couple books in the series, actually weaving a lot more like, no, there's a lot more going on than you realize. Like there's not that it becomes all about magic and like prophecies or anything like that, but there's more to it to be gained than just the kind of what the show became as far as people, chess pieces moving on the board as far as who's the king, who controls this, who's,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a series I've been considering maybe like reading reading a book and then switching to like a nonfiction and then going back to the next book and kind of splicing it up like that. That way I don't get like bored of the series and then stop completely.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a fiction book that I was considering being my next read, but I may check out The Stand and read that digitally next. Even though that will take up more of my time, I do think I want something a little more, I guess, entertaining to read at times.
Yeah.
Like right now I'm reading a book which I would strongly recommend. And maybe you've read it. It's called The Man's Search for Meaning. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, by Victor. I can't remember his middle initial, but it's like Viktor Frankl, and it's all about his time in a concentration camp during the Holocaust. And he's a psychologist, or was a psychologist rather. So it talks a lot about how he was able to find meaning in the concentration camp and how that played like a vital role to his survival, essentially, and how that translates, to everyday life and any person, no matter the situation. So I strongly recommend that. It's a quicker read, but it's about the Holocaust. It's very intense. So I am kind of looking maybe for something a little more, something more for leisure, I guess you could say.
So, definitely, yeah, something to unwind to a little bit, not as heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's jump over to the comments real quick before we dive deeper here. Alexander Miller, Labruski, I was wondering what microphone you use since I need a new one. I can't remember which one this is. I would recommend a different one though, because this is technically like a shotgun mic. So it's really not. It's not meant for like a podcast microphone. It does sound good and it does work well, but I would maybe just recommend like one of those Blue Yetis or whatever. That might be.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say, I'm not using my mic right now. I don't know how I'm coming through, by the way. I'm taking your word for it that I sound good.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah.
I'm using the integrated mic in my webcam that I have, which is a Nexigo, just something
Okay.
I got off Amazon. And I tested out both. So I had my wife actually get on StreamYard with me before this.
Okay.
3 or 4 days ago, and I hooked up the mic separately that I had, which granted is also a cheapie from like Walmart. It costs about $30. And she actually said that the audio sounds way better on this webcam than it does on the mic. So I was
Interesting.
like, well.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. You do sound good here, though. I will say, sounds fine
Good
to
to
me.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. But Alexander, yeah, I would recommend. I would say watch some videos on it, on like what microphones to use. I know you do the podcast and whatnot, so something like this, that's like a shotgun mic that's really supposed to be, that goes on top of a camera. I would say maybe check. I don't know if it's the microphone you should get. I would definitely maybe recommend more of a podcasting type of mic. And honestly, that's the mic I wish I had as a podcast. Like I honestly, my birthday's in the spring, and I'm thinking about asking for a new microphone. Not that this one's bad or anything, but I do kind of want something more, more in line with like this show, I guess, with the podcast and whatnot. That might sound better. Matt H, thank you for being here. Hope you're doing well. At GK Ultra, nice collection of Daredevil, buddy. What runs are your favorite? Ooh, that's a good question.
Man, I just love Daredevil so much. He's probably my favorite Marvel character. As far as favorite runs, Frank Miller did a lot of work.
Okay.
For me personally, because I grew up reading a lot of single issues of that run, which is in the omnibus here by him and Klaus Janson. But overall, of the stuff you see on the shelf here, so again, Miller, Bendis, Brubaker, Wade, Zdarsky, my personal favorite. Mark Waid is good at, if you're unfamiliar with the character, he's really good at getting you intimately familiar with who they are as a person really quick. Mm-hmm. But I will say that overall his run didn't stick with me nearly as much as a couple single issues involving Matt's relationship with his dad. You'll know if you've read it. But overall runs, I would say Bendis and Brubaker for sure, because those runs kind of like Bendis's run ends, but the last like arc is him literally propping up, like opening the door for Brubaker to come in and finish kind of the same storylines.
Yeah.
And I think those two, like, it's hard for me to say which aspect is better, the Bendis or the Brubaker. I want to say Bendis between the two, but I do think they read really well as a whole. I know that's a commitment because it is a lot of issues. I mean, it's a 4 omnibus set. Obviously, it's a commitment either way, time-wise, even if it's not monetary and you're buying hardcover stuff like me because you're stupid and aren't comfortable unless you own everything physically. But
that's all of us, right?
To me, Bendis and Brubaker, both of those.
That's what I hear as far as like you do kind of need to read Bendis's run in order to read Brubaker's. At least, like it complements it. Like it's very much like Bendis is passing the baton off.
Yeah, because Bendis overall is more like the Marvel Knights era, the aftermath of that. Whenever Daredevil kind of got, I would say, pushed back into the spotlight a little bit at Marvel. Mm-hmm. That really kind of sets the stage. If you have no idea who Matt Murdock is, I would say Bendis is a fine place to start. I mean, there's characters that show up from his past, but it's not like you don't have to know all that stuff to enjoy it.
Right.
It's not like it's a centerpiece of the run. They're just if you know them, you go, oh, hey, Typhoid Mary, or but it's not like you have to know everything about all these characters to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. With Bendis's run, that's one that I haven't read. I've only read Wade's run, and then also I think I read Man Without Fear by Frank Miller. But I had Bunk on the show. He was actually my first interview, and he mentioned if you like The Sopranos, which I really like The Sopranos.
Same.
Yeah, I love The Sopranos. That you would like Bendis's Daredevil, which I found interesting. So I'm like, okay,
like the first 2 or 3 opening arcs, especially, you'll really be able to tell what he was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that intrigues me, and that makes me really want to read Bendis's Daredevil. So I think that's going to be on my to be read list soon here.
Also, Matt, I think you're still in the chat. What Wolverine artist? What artist is that in your profile picture? Is that Silvestri or is that? I can't tell. I read all of it's on my mind because recently I also read all of Larry Hama's Wolverine run, and Silvestri
Okay.
did a big portion of the art on that. And that
Gotcha.
was kind of the highlight for me. So I saw that and I was like, is that one of Silvestri's or is that a little bit earlier? It might be from
Okay.
Uncanny.
Oh, that's funny. Let's go jump up here. Yo, Captain Underpants, thank you for being here, man. I hope you're doing well. Matt H, I agree. Bendis to Brubaker is seamless, which is great and rare to see between artists now, for
Yep.
sure. Uh, Matt H also says, I've read most of Daredevil from 1964 to 2008 and some of Wade's. I'm trying to decide between diving into Soul or Zdarsky next. I heard Zdarsky is better, but I know Soul is first. I've heard good things about Soul's run, I feel like.
Soul's Run's good. It's been a
Yeah.
long time since I've read it. You don't see it on the shelf because the omnibus is way out of print. And I
Right,
just
that's what I
recently
hear,
got back
yeah.
into Omnis about a year and a half ago. So
Okay.
at the time, I was just going for, and I still to like right now, I don't know for stuff that's out of print. I'm not paying. If I can help it, I'm not even going to pay cover price. Like we all know the websites to use.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm not out here trying to spend $700 a month on every new release.
No, that's
I'm
totally
using
fair.
OPB. I'm using in stock trades. Uh, sales on the distors that we're in. Sometimes people get rid of stuff for cheaper than cheaper even
Mhm.
than the websites. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's how the shelf looks this way. I am not buying this stuff for cover price. Like
that's
it's
fair.
not worth it to me. I love it, but it's not gonna happen.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't think I've ever bought a book for, like, out of print pricing, I don't think. I probably have bought something for cover price, though, like, because where I live, there's, a big mall about an hour away or so, and there's a decent sized comic shop in there, and they have, like, a wall of omnibuses, like, in absolutes.
Yeah.
Like, it is, beautiful, I will say. Um And so I think I bought something from there one time and it's cover price there. So, oh, let's see. Oh, there's your answer. It's
Yep.
John Buscemi. Is that how you say it?
I'm not even gonna try.
Oh,
I know the
all right.
artist he's talking about. I'm not even gonna try.
All right. That's fair. That's fair. Lack of space is making me slow down more than anything. That's kind of
You
my
know what's a
situation
really
too.
easy way? A really easy way to get over that is just don't think about it and hit the order button.
There you go.
Worry about it later. Hey, look, hey,
Worry about it
probably
later.
here you go. Perfect example. I
I
got
love
a
that.
OPB Organic Price Books had a sale going on about a month ago. I've
Uh-huh.
not even slaughtered them in yet. The package just came in yesterday. A lot of times I see they do those distribution sales and stuff. The stuff they have is not in stock at the time, which doesn't matter to me. I've got like 8 or 9 of these that I've not even unsealed
For
yet.
sure.
But
You
if I
got
catch them on sale, and I've got some money to blow, I don't care to do that. So right here next to me, actually, I've not slotted them in yet. I've got
ooh,
Hickman's Avengers. This is actually volume 2. I don't even
okay.
have volume 1 yet, but volume 1 is still available. But
Nice.
I caught this on sale for like half price, um, or something like that, maybe $50, something like that. Which is
That's
cover
not
for this
bad
is
at all.
125. So I mean, yeah, I can't complain. Besides those packing peanuts didn't fully do their job. It's a little stuffed up on the corner,
Oh,
but
geez.
I'm not one of those people that's a stickler for that stuff. Like I take these things, the smaller ones, like the ones about the size of the Daredevil ones that are like 25 issues. I'll take them with me to work. I'll read them in my car. I don't throw them around, but I'll sit them in the passenger seat and just grab them on lunch and read. Like
Yeah.
my stuff gets a little bit of wear and tear just because I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And also in that same order I got, I'll just show real quick.
Nice.
I did also get Seven Soldiers by Grant Morrison, the Omni.
Nice.
Like I said, I think it was $50 and cover for it's I think cover for this is 125 as well. So yeah, I pick up stuff on sale if I've been meaning to check it out. If I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it, don't do that. By the way, read stuff digitally first and get an idea. I've not. I've only been so. I've only been burned. I've only been burned one time, blind buying an Omni,
Okay.
and that was Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run. I bought the first Omni last Christmas. I got a gift card as a gift, and I used it on Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run because I had a buddy that really was a big fan of it when it was first coming out. And you can see by the shelves here, I have Venom by Donny Cates as far as Spider-Man goes. I've got 2099, Nick Spencer's Volume 1, and Superior Spider-Man. I'm not a huge Spider-Man guy. I'm not anti-Spider-Man. I know that your reaction. I know already. I mean, directly in the comics as far as his runs go, because I just haven't read that much of it. And I feel like you and me are the same age, I think. I'm 24.
I'm 24 too, yeah.
Okay. So me and you grew up like prime time to be a Spider-Man fan, right? I don't dislike Spider-Man at all. I love Spider-Man. I love 2099. I love Miles Morales. I love Spider-Man Noir, all these characters, because games like Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time, is that the other one?
I think
the one where Peter's like dying and Miguel has to come save him from anti-venom or something.
That sounds right. I know there's one too, Web of Shadows. I think it's
Web of Shadows. Yeah, all the movie games. What I'm getting at is I love Spider-Man. I don't need to read Spider-Man to know that. I know that sounds weird. I've just gotten so much Spider-Man from the cartoons to the movies to the games, all this stuff that I've never actually sat down and been like, what Spider-Man run do I need to read?
Right. Okay.
Just because so many other characters have caught my eye, you know.
For sure. No, that makes complete sense to me. I mean, I feel like as far as Spider-Man goes, I mean, he's one of the most saturated comic book heroes ever. Same with like Batman, I would argue, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if it's done. No. If there's good stories out there, go for it, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care if there were 7 different Iron Man series running, if they were all good or unique or had something about them that was appealing to somebody, you know. I'm all for it. I know people say that DC is just the Batman company now. That's like the biggest complaint with DC is there's so many Bat books on the shelves. But honestly, like, they're not all the same tone. Like, if you look right now, Philip Kennedy Johnson's Batman and Robin does not look anything like Tom Taylor's Detective or, you know, Hush 2 is about to start. Like, those aren't the same book. Like, not at all. Like, they all have Batman. I get it, but like, even Batgirl right now, Cassandra Cain, that book is nowhere near. You know, it's not just you're not just reading the same Bat book over and over again. They're all different.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess for Spider-Man goes, I would recommend Ultimate Spider-Man, though, if you haven't read that.
Yeah, that's the one that always gets recommended the most. And I think that's funny because it's the alternate universe, you know, the Ultimate Universe take on it.
Yeah.
But I see people recommending it a lot because it's kind of condensing all the other stories from over the years of the most popular beats and like Bendis's take on it and him trying to kind of make it all modernized a little bit.
Yeah.
I need to check it out. It's just one of those series that I keep getting recommended and I'm like, I'm sure it's good because I'm a Bendis guy, you know, like I just said. I love his New Avengers, I've not read his DC stuff, but a lot of his Marvel stuff, like I know it's one of those series that I know I'm going to like, so I'm not as like in a rush to read it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah. And I think also too, it makes sense kind of from what you were saying as far as like, there's just so much other stuff and other characters to like check out and read. Why would you not waste your time? But I guess use your time to read a character you're already very familiar with. You know,
I'm already swayed. I know I like Spider-Man already. Like I'm not, you know.
No,
I know it sounds like I sound like I hate Spider-Man. I know that's what it sounds like.
Not to me. I think you're getting your point across pretty well. I will say, even if you did hate Spider-Man, I'm one of the people that like, hey, it's all subjective. You know what? Like, I'm not going to be mad or angry with you just because you hate a character I love or vice versa. You know, it's all subjective at the end of the day. So, and I think the comic book community, I think some parts is pretty good at like recognizing that, you know, and whatnot. But I'm curious, you mentioned that you started collecting Omnis a year and a half ago, right?
So what happened was, so like I said, you and me are the same age. So about the time I was getting out of high school, I was 18, 19. Went to community college to get my associates.
Yep. That's what I did too.
So used financial aid. I was lucky enough to be able to do that. Got a fat check from the government to do that. Nice. No shame in my game. It all went to in-stock trades. So I had Probably first Omnis I bought. My first order from In Stock Trades on my account. I still have it on there. And I made a lot of people mad when I posted this in the Discord about a year and a half ago, one of the servers I'm in. My first order from In Stock Trades, because at the time, Frank Miller's Daredevil was out of print. I said, oh, hey, that was my first order, actually. I've got it on the shelf. And I posted the order, the screenshot of the order, the receipt on the website.
Yeah.
My first omnibus order it had 3 books in it. It had Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale,
Nice.
which I love.
Yeah.
Daredevil by Frank Miller. And the other one, what was the other one? Oh, the other one was Ultimates, Mark Miller's Ultimates.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I also love. I think I loaned it to my dad actually to read because he was wanting to read it. So it's not on. That's why I couldn't think of what it was. It's not on the shelf right now because he's got it. But yeah, those were my first 3 that I got. So I probably got 8 or 9. And then it was just one of those things where I kind of just dipped out of the hobby.
Sure.
Not for any particular reason. Just
Yeah.
got busy with probably games. I probably got busy just playing games instead and stopped reading comics as much.
Okay.
I've never really kept up with single issues that much.
Same
a little
here.
more background on me. Like I do keep, I do dip my toes in occasionally to kind of see what's current, what the new hot thing is, going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't follow series month to month. To me, that is the worst way for me personally to enjoy a story is reading those 20 pages a month and then waiting 4 to 5 weeks for the next, 20% of that story arc to come out. I hate that. I can't stand it. Call it my OCD, ADHD, whatever you want. I truly enjoy binge reading series way more. That's why I collect a complete run, or if it's a 3-volume set, at least I know that I'm going to get a good 30 issues at once that I can,
For sure.
But like I said, that being said, I've also been burned blind buying an Omni before. But what I've been doing is I pretty much only check out stuff that I pretty well can guarantee I'm going to like. There's not a single book up here that I would say I didn't at least really enjoy reading. I wouldn't say I love and would highly recommend them to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I know not everyone's a Grant Morrison fan. Not everyone's a big, Warren Ellis fan, like I said. But like, genuinely, all this stuff here, I love it. Like, there's nothing I regret. No regrets really, besides the Nick Spencer Spidey run. And that wasn't really because of Spider-Man. It was more the way that Nick Spencer wrote it.
Okay.
Have you read any of that run?
I have not read any of that run. No.
Yeah, so it's not even that it's bad. And also Ryan Otley is the artist for a big portion of it. So that's
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons I bought it. I was like, Invincible. I love Ryan Otley.
Yeah, for sure.
And his art is super good in it. But Nick Spencer has a habit. I read I didn't even finish reading the Omni. That's how sour I was on it.
Wow.
Not because I just hated it, but because the way Nick Spencer wrote it, every issue got to be where it would have like a big 2-page spread of Peter's monologue, his thoughts saying, oh man, I can't believe this happened with MJ last issue. Like it was a built-in recap. And I just found it so annoying. And like the stuff that was happening just wasn't gripping me enough to keep going.
Sure.
So I just didn't end up finishing it. But for the most part, all this stuff, no complaints. I like getting the compendium size stuff in paperback. I prefer Omnis, but DC's been doing a lot of work on these compendiums, like Starman, which isn't on the shelf right now. I love Starman as well. If you've never read,
I've not read it, but isn't your Discord bio or whatever? Check out Starman or something.
Yeah, it says,
I know
the little thought bubble thing.
Yeah,
if you click on my profile, it says you should read Starman.
Yeah, that's what I hear so much about, and I need to read eventually. So, and I will probably get those. They're like paperback compendiums.
Yeah. So the DC compendiums are paperback, but I heard people saying when they first started coming out, the first one I got was the Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. It was Kyle Rayner's kind of origin and his first appearance as Green Lantern.
I remember that.
But it's a big chunk. It's the one that has compendium notoriously misspelled. DC literally misspelled the word compendium. It has an N instead of an M at the end. Yeah.
That's too.
If I had it out, I would show you just so you could see. But it's in. I know the reason I like those. I put them in long boxes for single issues. You know, I put them in the long boxes
Yeah,
for storage. They fit perfectly. Like they don't jut out at the top or anything.
perfect.
But like I would say the Nightwing Compendium, like that's the first of the Chuck Dixon run there. I think this thing has like a crazy amount of issues. It's something ridiculous. It's got over 30. It may have 35 or 40 issues in it, but it's beautiful. I've read this whole thing. A lot of people say their spines get creased. You can see mine is not like
Yeah, no,
no
it
wear
looks
and tear
fine.
at all. Like I don't care to like no tearing or anything, no eye bubbling up, nothing.
Wow.
Like I said, I put this in my passenger seat, took it and just laid it there and picked it up, read it in the car on lunch, put it back. I don't know what the big deal
No
is.
issues.
I'm not saying they're all going to be that way, but I've not had bad luck with them so far. So yes, it is.
It's a
Absolutely
phone
is
book.
that.
That thing, yeah. Yeah, so that's good to know because and also with image compendiums, I've been worried that there will be some like gutter loss and some page loss with this
Yeah,
spine.
I don't have any super huge image ones. I have only one of those I have is Kill or Be Killed, and it is. I don't even know how many issues Kill or Be Killed is. 20, 24?
Let's see. Maybe
1 through 20.
24.
20.
20? Okay, yeah.
It says in the front cover there, but I can show you right here. It's just a random page. There's not really.
So not bad. Okay, good.
No, not. I never found myself when I was reading it having to, like stretch it excessively or turn it. Of course, the way Sean Phillips kind of panels everything too helps with that. He's not using the very border of the page, so you don't get that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to know because there's been a few that I've been wanting to pick up, compendium specifically by image, but I've been kind of worried because I'm like, I have there's the Middle West complete edition that I have up here, this way, that way, and there was that kind of page loss where you had to stretch it out and try to read. So I had been worried about kind of dipping my toes into more of it. I mean, I do own the Invincible compendiums; those are paperback, and then also a couple Walking Deads, and those are fine. But I have been worried about dipping my toes into.
Well, see, my Invincible, I'll take it back. I do have the Invincible ones, and they're pretty hefty. They probably have what would you say? Probably 48, 50 issues in each of them.
Probably 48.
My Invincible one, it did get a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of stuff on the very bottom of the spine, but it's nothing like catastrophic. Like if I'm going to read it, like, does it really matter? Like I'm reading the book, I put it back on the shelf. I don't, I'm not buying these to keep in pristine condition and then resell to make $30 off of them in 3 years when they're out of print. I'm buying them to read them. So.
For sure. And I think I have gotten too like kind of caught up in keeping my books like prestige, but if you're collecting all these books and whatnot, you kind of have to try to let that go eventually. Like naturally books are going to kind of get scuffed up and a little damaged, and it's like it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. People on Reddit like to keep their books in glass cases.
Amen.
Yeah. I will say though, Beyond Comics, he was on the show last week, and he had these beautiful glass bookshelves, and I do want glass bookshelves because
for sure
of the dust.
I left the comments. I left a comment on that live stream. I was like, oh my gosh, I love those bookshelves. And
that's right.
Thanks to the Pride of my collection or something like that. I was like really into that. That was awesome.
They look gorgeous. Yeah. So if I'm ever able to afford glass bookshelves, I think I would definitely get those because they look great. I don't know. Captain Underpants, I want the East to West compendium. Yes, that was one of the compendiums by Image that I do want to get, and I was worried about kind of the spine and then also the page of gutter loss. And I know Alex from Count Comics, he I believe ordered that. So I told him to let me know how it was when he does read that.
Yeah.
Yes, glass door bookshelves are great, but I'm talking about people wrapping individual omnis. Yeah, that's a little crazy. Yeah, no, I get what you mean for sure. So what's your What would you say is your like favorite omnibus that you've bought and owned now?
Favorite omnibus that I've read out of all these. So it's hard to answer that because some of the stuff, it's not all blind buys. A lot of the stuff I've got in other formats and then upgraded to.
Yeah, yeah,
One of
sure.
the first Batman stories I read that really was like made me love Batman
Mhm.
was The Long Halloween.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great one.
So that's part of the reason that I got that was my first Omni order was that
Right, yep.
Batman by Loeb and Sale. But since I got back in, like I said, about a year and a half ago, the most fun I've had reading comics has been, I can give you two answers. I can say Planetary,
Nice.
because Planetary exists very well. If you're hesitant about it, anyone watching, if you're hesitant because it's in the Wildstorm universe of
Mhm.
DC, with all the other like Wildcats and all that stuff and
Right.
Stormwatch, don't worry about it. Planetary exists completely on its own. There is a Planetary Authority crossover issue, but literally the Planetary characters are there and the Authority characters are here, and they never really interact. It's just one of those things that's fun to read if you've read the Authority, and then you
Okay.
go read Planetary. You go, oh, that's what that was. Because actually, it's funny. In my um, in my collection of the Warren Ellis Authority, that issue's there, and
Mm.
I read it. It's included in like it's got the Authority book one. It says book one on the spine. It's got the 12 issues of Warren Ellis, and then it's got that Planetary issue as well. And I read it, and I was like, "Who are these people?" And I could not remember at all when I read the Planetary Omnibus that was in there until I got to that part at the end of the book, and I was like, "Wait a minute, that made sense." Now I get what
Mhm.
the big deal was about that being there. So that's the first answer is Planetary because it's also a good way. John Cassaday is the artist. I don't know if
Mhm.
you're familiar with John Cassaday at all, but I love his
A
art.
little
I
bit.
think he's one of the best in the business. Was one of the best in the business.
Mhm.
He passed away last year or the
Oh,
year
jeez.
before. Horrible. That was just horrible to
Yeah.
hear. He's really good at using double page or single page spreads, splash pages,
Oh, nice.
and
Okay.
also working with like minimal dialogue, but still, he doesn't draw every character the same, like even facially, like you can tell who everybody is, and it's very cinematic, kind of like Brian Hitch. Um, but the other answer is probably, I know everyone thinks I'm probably going to say Daredevil at this point, but honestly, it's probably Immortal Hulk, Al
Okay.
Ewing's Immortal Hulk. Now that's a big Omni.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest out there. There's probably 60 plus issues in there.
Oh my god.
Maybe not right at 60, maybe a little under that. But I think the actual series is 50 something. And there's a mini series about Alpha Flight that's 5, and there's like 4 or 5 tie-ins with the events that were happening at the time,
Mm.
which blows my mind. They're all actually good. Like one of my favorite issues in it is the King in Black. Donny
Okay.
Cates is King in Black. The tie-in issue to that event
Okay, yeah.
has no text at all, and it is about Bruce Banner, or I think it's one of his other personas, Joe Fixit, fighting some of the symbiotes,
Mhm.
the symbiote monsters that Null brings down,
Yep.
just on his own. One of the best issues in the whole the whole
Wow,
thing. It was
okay.
so good. But Al Ewing is really, um, really one of my favorite newer creators because, of course, like I said, I've not been tuned in for all these years. He's been doing stuff forever, but he's new to
Right.
me because I'm buying these collections like this. So obviously, I'm getting this stuff years after most people have
Right.
already read the
Right.
single issues or the trades. So yeah, I love that Omni. Hulk is one of my favorite characters ever, and the ongoing right now by Philip Kennedy Johnson is
Is
also
good?
super good. Yeah, it's a
Interesting,
different
okay.
kind of a different flavor of Hulk, but it's super good. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, and I know you mentioned too that you don't really collect single issues. Is that that's correct, right?
Yeah. So my deal is, if you can't tell by the yeehaw in my voice, I live in middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and
Okay.
actually there was, when I was growing up, there was a comic shop, fairly close to me.
Okay.
So what actually got me back, quote unquote, back in, Of course, like I said, being on Reddit and social media, I always kind of kept the door open, and I would see people post the panels and all the comic subreddits of, oh my god, this thing just happened, and I would kind of keep in touch with it that way just to see what was up.
Sure.
What got me, like I said, back in, if you want to call it that, is actually Philip Kennedy Johnson's current Hulk run.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. I can tell you what it was, but I don't know why that made me go to the comic store and check it out. So I went over there because I saw people posting panels of this new Ghost Rider. Have you seen the World War II era Ghost Rider at all?
I don't think I have. No.
So it's like issue 7 or 8 of his Hulk run.
Okay.
His Hulk run is kind of a Bruce Banner. It reminds you kind of the Edward Norton Hulk.
Okay.
Not plot wise, but Bruce Banner is just kind of making his way. He's staying far away from civilization if he can help it, and he's just trying to live his life and not let the Hulk come out.
You're right. Yep.
And he is fighting like these monsters and like cryptids, that kind of stuff, like the darker side of the Marvel Magic universe.
Interesting.
And he stumbles upon this town in Texas or Arizona, maybe it's in Mexico, and this Ghost Rider gets introduced. That's a World War II era Ghost Rider that's possessed the spirit of this motorcycle, and he's like watching over his relatives.
Mm-hmm.
And the cover is him fighting the Hulk. And I saw that, and for whatever reason, I was like, I've got to go check this out. So that's what actually got me back into collecting in general. And that shop actually that I was going to ended up closing down because, like I said, I'm in small town Kentucky. It's actually in a bigger town about 20 minutes away, and it just couldn't keep the doors open, sadly. And it sucks, but at the same time, like, I hate to say this, but it's probably a good move for me in the long run because I do get into the habit of buying singles, but I don't enjoy storing singles. I have probably 5 long boxes worth of single issue comics.
Okay.
But there's no good way for me to store those or display them.
Yeah.
There's just not. I don't enjoy physically reading them that way. You have to bag and board them and keep them all safe. I strongly prefer just having them like this. But his Hulk run actually is what got me back in and interested. And similarly to what I was just saying about my first order when I got back in was the Immortal Hulk omnibus.
Right. Yeah.
I read it probably in 3 nights, maybe 3 sittings.
You read that whole thing in 3 nights?
Yep.
Oh my God. That's
highly recommend. You don't have to know anything about like what's going on in the Marvel universe at the time to enjoy it. Just super good stuff.
Interesting. Okay. I do own the first trade of it, and I do think I have read it. The first, now, mind you, it like collects like 5 issues, I think. Like it's a super small thin trade.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy what I read, but that I would read that digitally, I think, because that
right.
I don't think I'd like.
I will say it's not. Yeah. It's a little bit too bulky. I'm glad they didn't split it into 2 just because I don't mind having a big book like that on the shelf. But it is definitely that size book where you do worry about the spine and the eye coming. You do worry about the binding. I will say also on that, mine is totally fine. But when you get to that size book, you're getting into dangerous territory for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Same as like I would say Grant Morrison's JLA. It's a pretty good size book. I've not read it yet, but it is that similar in size to that where you worry a little bit about reading it. You're kind of more careful.
Yeah, same way. It looks like Batman by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty too. It's up there.
And same with Hellblazer. That's big.
Yeah, the Ennis one's pretty size up there.
You'll have to let me know how the Ennis one is because I do like Preacher a lot. I like Garth Ennis.
Dude, me too. I'm a huge Garth Ennis fan. If I ever get to the point where I'm doing interviews with creators on YouTube, Garth Ennis top of my list.
Nice.
Yep, he's the one.
Do you like? Well, actually, real quick, because I do want to add about the single issue collecting. I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like, there's too many negatives to me reading and collecting single issues than there are pros, right? And then especially compared to
I see you, Bunk. I see the comment. I'm just saying.
Bunk Master. Oh, thank you for being here, Bunk. It's always a pleasure to see you in the chat. Love seeing these Savage Shores being showed off. Great horror story that put Ram V on the map. I think, was it you that was telling me about? I think it was. I think you were telling me about
Well,
these.
so I was
Shores.
commenting and I was saying
Yes.
that I was making a video on it. That
Yes.
still hasn't come out because everything seems to work against me when I try to actually put effort into a video. So if you look at my channel right now, you'll see a lot of low effort, minimal editing.
No,
I just need to buckle down and actually put the work in and do it, because that is a video that I want to do a more long form discussion about. Really love these Savage Shores. Yeah.
Yes, you were. I remember now. You were commenting, and I never heard of that one. And I was like, I need to check that one out.
Well, Ron V is another one of those, just like Al Ewing. He's another one of those newer, he's the new hotness that everyone talks about. But I was like a year ago, I was like, who is this guy? I don't know, just because I've not read anything by him. And of course, that led me down a rabbit hole. I went and read like 5 of his series. He does a lot of indie work.
He does, which I love.
If you've The One Hand and the Six Fingers, him and Dan Waters. I highly recommend that one too.
I haven't read it, but I hear great things. I need to check that one out for sure.
Yeah, I got that one for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Super good. Good. It's two series. It's 2 separate series. The One Hand and the Six Fingers, but it is in one trade by Image. It's just a normal size trade. I think there's 5 issues of each, but it's issue 1 of the One Hand, issue 1 of Six Fingers, and it goes 2, 2, 3, 3. Because one point of view is a detective trying to catch this killer, and the other one is the killer. His perspective.
Interesting.
But it's a sci-fi story, but you wouldn't know that at first glance. It's not like in space. It's not like Star Trek, if that makes sense. It is. It's almost like the Matrix. It'll put you in mind of the Matrix.
Interesting. All right, I'm gonna have to check that one out for sure. Yeah, Remvy's done a lot of good stuff. Let's see. The Mortal Hulk Omni comes with a back brace and a workman's comp form. That's funny. Bunk says Ram V has been putting out great stuff for years, way before he blew up for Many Deaths of Layla Starr. He was doing great stuff like Graffiti's Wall and Paradiso.
Out of those 3, I've only read Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Loved it. Haven't read the other 2 yet, but I do plan to.
Yeah, that was my first introduction too. Many Deaths of Layla Starr, as I'm sure it was many other people's as well.
Right. Yeah,
that's a great series. But yeah, the single issues, I just find it way more enjoyable to, like you were saying, like binge a series or just be able to read the entire series. I try not to binge series because I find that I don't get everything out of it, I guess.
You find yourself almost speeding to the end instead of taking it in as much.
Yeah. So I try to space things out or like read only a certain amount of issues a day or whatever. But I do just find it way more enjoyable to read like a collected edition. And also like my memory when it comes to these stories, like by the time the next issue comes out next month, I'm not going to remember what happened. Like I'll have to just reread the last issue to remember even what happened. So I just find it way better to read.
Yeah, and it's like no one goes, if you're doing that too, no one's going to the comic shop and just picking up one series. You end up getting, you might go and spend see, that's the thing too. That's what gets me is like single issues is kind of the most expensive format too when you add in the badges and boards. Like a single issue, some of them are $5 or $6 now. Well, if it's Aliens versus Avengers, Hickman's current, I think those are like $8 or $9 for a single issue, and they are oversized. I think they're double sized, but still, I'm going to buy that trade for. I want to buy that trade for $20. It's going to be like $12, $13 on in-stock trades. That doesn't even buy me 2 of the single issues. For sure.
So I feel like collected editions more often than not are way more cost efficient. Yeah, absolutely. Also too, I do want to be aware of your time. We've been going over a little over an hour now. Do you have a certain time limit that you have to be somewhere? I just don't want to.
I can probably go another 10 or 15.
Okay, cool, awesome. Let me kind of switch gears here because, and I'm sure maybe you're aware of this.
We've been rambling a lot.
Well, it's the show, off the cuff. So I'm A-okay with that. But I do kind of want to switch gears and ask you a question that I always ask every guest. Maybe you know it, and it's not comic book related.
Yeah.
Do you have a good paranormal experience you would like to share?
So I've got a more layered answer than most of the people you ask. I'll
Awesome.
say that because I have been
Okay.
watching. Every time you get to that question, I'm like, man, surely this guy's going to say, and then it's always like, no, and that's it.
I know.
I will say I do have a more layered answer to that.
Awesome.
I've not seen a ghost. First, let's get that out of the way.
Okay.
I'm not like in a haunted house or anything right now.
Sure.
Sometimes I think I am because I keep finding comics in the mail that I don't remember ordering, but I think that's just me.
That just comes
so-
along with a hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that have had
Okay.
experiences in, people that aren't, I would say, skeptics by nature, or, my dad actually had a crazy encounter, whatever you want to call it, when he was in college. The closest I've come to anything I would say is paranormal, which really, I don't know if you'd even count this. I would probably say weird sleep paralysis type stuff.
Mm,
Are you familiar with sleep paralysis at all?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt in the comments is cracking me up.
Oh my God. That's funny.
But I did, this was just like a week and a half ago. And I've got a buddy that I work with that has had bad sleep paralysis for like his whole life. And I've been lucky enough to never have experienced that until recently. But in the past couple months, I have. And it's weird because like I'll be dreaming, and of course not about anything, just random. You know how dreams are. It's just random stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like I was watching, like I was there asleep and I was watching the dream almost play out. And this black, like I saw this black like form. It looks like the upper half of a person or something, completely black outline, but like the shape of a head, like as much as you can see of me right now, just starts fading in from the background and slowly makes its way forward until it's like right here. And I woke up, I was fully awake, and I looked around my bedroom and I was like, what was that? Because a lot of times, because a lot of times if I wake up, it's because there's been a noise. We live pretty close to Main Street in the town we live in, and there are people, not like homeless people, but there are people that'll walk up and down the road.
Sure.
And sometimes I will wake up if I hear them, they're having a conversation and they're on the other side of the road, outside my house, and I'll be like, okay, that's why I woke up. But I'm not usually someone that just wakes up just for no reason.
Right.
Like I went through my whole house. I was like, what, did something fall? Like, did the wind blow something down? And that's happened like 5 times now, and I have no idea why.
Wow.
So maybe I am haunted. I don't know. You tell me.
Maybe your house is haunted. Wow. Yeah. I guess I would classify that as paranormal, right? Like you can't necessarily.
I don't know why it just started happening like out of nowhere, because everybody I know that like has dealt with that, it's been like a lifelong thing. Like it's just something random that happens to them.
Weird.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate. I've never really experienced sleep paralysis. Thankfully, knock on wood, right? Tonight I'm probably going to experience for the first time. But I hear it can be very intense and very traumatic almost. So, but yeah, no, I would classify that as paranormal. Are you a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal type stuff?
I'm a believer. I wouldn't even say skeptic. Yeah, I'm into all that. I'm into I'm not watching like ghost hunters every night or anything, but I'm into like all the cryptids and like paranormal experiences people post. I'm a horror fan, so I'm into all that stuff.
That's interesting.
Well, if it's funny, because if you really talk to like people that or at least in my experience in my life, everyone that you talk to and ask about that, they're like, no, that's not real. Like there's no such thing as ghosts.
Right.
If you keep talking about it, they're like, well, there was this one time. when my dog started barking and all my chairs in my living room were floating 10 feet in the air. Not bad, but like
Right.
everyone's got,
Yeah.
it seems like everyone does have at least one thing that they just don't, they're like, no, that was nothing. It doesn't matter. But there's so many people that I know that do have that, that wouldn't call themselves, a skeptic or anything, that I'm like, there's probably something going on. Who knows? Nobody knows, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely. I would say I'm definitely more of a skeptic, but I do like to entertain the paranormal stuff. Like I wouldn't say I'm a believer necessarily or anything like that, but I do love a good ghost story.
When I say believer, I just mean I'm more willing to entertain the thought.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Similar to me then.
Yeah.
Like you,
yeah. I'm not like you were possessed as a kid. That's why you did that thing to your brother. Like not that, but like I'm more willing to listen and be like, and then what happened?
Exactly. Like I love a good ghost story around a campfire in the middle of the woods, So, let's see. Matt H. I used to make fun of this stuff, but that Expedition Bigfoot show on Discovery Channel was pretty interesting. I will say Bigfoot, that cryptid, and Expedition X too. I haven't heard of either of those shows.
Not familiar with Expedition X. I mean, I'm sure Expedition Bigfoot's pretty self-explanatory, but I don't know about Expedition X. But yeah, I'm into like all the like folklore. Of course, it's my area that I live in too. Like the Appalachians are right around the corner from me, so like there's a lot more of like the history and the folklore and like the paranormal. Like just it's a part of history around here. Everyone's got like a campfire story, quote unquote, because a lot of us are around the woods. So,
For sure. Yeah. As far as like some of the cryptid stuff goes, like I don't believe, like I find it entertaining,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Like, especially Bigfoot. I'm like, there's no way there's a Bigfoot out there still living. Like, I think
we know. Yeah. I think by now everyone has a camera. Like, it's just
exactly. And like, I do think maybe there was an animal alive on Earth at one point that resembled a Bigfoot, right? Like that we know it as, but I don't think that creature's still alive and roaming the Earth today. Like I just can't imagine that to be the case. But and also the Appalachia thing, or Appalachian. How do you say Appalachia?
Either doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, even people around here will say it both ways. Like it, yeah.
Gotcha. I always there's a bunch of TikToks, but I don't have TikTok anymore, but I used to, and there'd always be stuff about Appalachia on there about like people that live in those woods or around that that area, right? And they're always like, there's rules when you live in Appalachia. You never go out at night, and you never like whatever. And I always just kind of find those a little funny, but also interesting. Like that is their culture in a lot of ways.
There's definitely some truth to some of that. Like I'm not in like it's not like our town or anything has like a local like myth or cryptid about right outside your window at night, but there is like, and a lot of those stories, when you get down to it, even over the years, the message of a lot of those stories is tell the kids not to go too far.
Right.
It's like tell them something so they'll stay close to home if they're out playing or if they're out by themselves. That's really what those stories are. Not that I really think there's a Bigfoot or whatever, a skunk ape, whatever you want to say. It's not like we're all like, oh, he's right there. It's just
right. Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, I don't know. Also, too, with the question though of that I always ask, like a lot of people don't have a good answer, which I'm like, maybe I should just figure out a better question. A lot of
I like the question. I personally like the question just because that's one of the things I'm into. Like,
same here.
I like that's one of my YouTube like rabbit holes that I go to. My wife goes nuts because she cannot handle like scary movies or anything. I will go to bed and like fall asleep watching like what's one of the channels like Netspo, Mr. Ballin, who tells like the true crime stories, and like some of them are like quote unquote paranormal. Like I'll fall asleep watching those like nothing because I just think they're interesting. Like,
do you watch?
She can't stand it.
Oh, that's funny. Do you watch Wendigoon?
Yeah, I do. One of my favorite YouTubers. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, his videos are great. He covers a lot of
Yep.
good stuff.
Yep.
Matt H, don't be saying anything like that now. All right, don't put that thought in my head. But one of these days, I'm gonna have someone on the show and ask them that question. They're gonna have this amazing paranormal experience story that they can tell me one of these days. So stay tuned. But I think we've been going for about an hour and a half now. I think that's going to do it for today's episode. This has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm definitely going to
Yeah,
have you on the channel again soon, whether it be
absolutely.
another interview like this or maybe an all-in-one nerd show. You can hop on with me and Tyler. If Tyler's out, maybe
Yeah,
you can
for
go
sure. I'd love to.
on. Is there anything you want to plug your YouTube channel again? Anything like
Uh,
you just want to add
YouTube
about
channel's
that?
fine. I will say I've been really trying. My plan was for the new year to really get more serious about uploading, get more consistent, put in a little more production quality to the videos, and life just keeps happening to where that's
Yeah,
harder for me to do. I mean, obviously, I've got a full time job, got a house, got all that stuff. I'm married.
you got
It's
a lot of
it's
life
just my
responsibilities. Yeah,
spare time is not something I have a lot of, and it's not that I couldn't do it, but I'm not going to be like, "Hey, honey, I'm going to go in here and record for 45 minutes," and then
sure, sure, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I try to upload on YouTube somewhat on a regular schedule. Like just now, like I was texting you on Discord. I almost thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to talking to you more. You're awesome. Um, I really just enjoy it as an outlet. It's not like I'm out here trying to become a millionaire on YouTube. I know that's a fantasy
Yeah,
for 99% of people. I just like
right.
talking about nerdy stuff that I'm into, whether it's games, comics, books, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, and that's also why I started YouTube is just to have an outlet. A lot of
Yeah.
my friends in real life they're not really into this stuff that I'm into, which is
Yeah. Same
unfortunate.
here.
So it's like I do need a bit of an outlet and to make online friends like you or Illuminati
Yeah.
or Fifth of Jack or Matt, whoever.
Oh yeah, I
Bunk.
love Illuminati's videos.
Oh, they're
He
great.
has a lot. He has mostly good takes besides Last of Us Part Two, but we'll let that one slide.
Oh boy, we're gonna talk about that show when that airs. I think it's in April or yeah, I think it's in April when that
It's pretty
second.
soon. Yeah, it's pretty soon.
Yeah, pretty soon.
I think
So
didn't they say they were going to split Part Two into 2 seasons? Am I wrong
I
about? Am I right
believe
about
so.
that?
I
I feel
believe
like
they
I
did.
heard that.
Yeah, I believe they did say that. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm excited for it.
Me
Um,
too.
but yeah, so everyone, if you have not already done so, check out GK Ultra's channel in the description below. There's a link there. Go subscribe, check out his latest video, all that good jazz. And thank you everyone so much for watching GK Ultra. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, we're going to have you on the show again soon, very soon. And yes, thank you everyone for watching. We will catch you in the next off the cuff interview.